Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Mansfield Matters podcast. The season is over, and we've already started looking ahead to the next one. In fact, just half an hour before recording this intro, Lee Gregory put pen to paper on a one-year deal. Now, this pod isn't about that. This pod, as you can see by the title, is Martin Pemberton's stag story. However, this one is a little different because it's, well, to use a footballing analogy, a game of two halves. In the first part, Pembo shares his story from his time at the club, joining us in 2000 and leaving as a promotion winner in 2002. However, his journey with the club is a huge part of where he is now, running his own business, focusing on mental health and wellbeing, 1 to 11 coaching. And that's what the second half is all about. Now, we often talk on here about life after football, life after the full-time whistle has blown. And other than fleeting conversations with our guests in the past, we've never really delved into it until now. So this is where I'm obliged to give you a trigger warning, because what you're about to hear is not a show full of funny stories. It's not going to be one where we hear about practical jokes, etc. It's one that does contain stories of a sensitive nature, which some people may find difficult to listen to. But they have to be told. Because football binds us all in a way that can often mask those more darker thoughts and feelings, those troubling times. Yes, it can give us a focus, that's true. But what's also true is that there are more people out there who simply struggle and suffer in silence. This show delves right into that, for which I make no apology. Because if it inspires just one person to seek help or speak out, it's job done. If it helps someone to understand what they're going through or what others might be going through, it really is job done. We've just witnessed a euphoric season that ended in promotion. It filled our Saturdays with love, joy, and pride. But now they're gone. They're empty. There's a void and a question. What next? As you'll hear, that's exactly what happened with Pembo, albeit over time, and that's why now is the ideal time to share not just a stag story, but a more powerful message that it's okay to not be okay. And you are never alone in this battle. To reiterate, this podcast will contain conversations of a sensitive nature, and I completely understand if you don't want to listen beyond this point. That's absolutely fine. But if you do and you want to stick with us, then thank you. This is Stag Stories with Martin Pemberton. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Mansfield Matters. It's Stag Stories time again. Yes, the footballs are away. The pitch is being dug up, hopefully. The training ground certainly is. And we're all dreaming about life in League One. But with these blank Saturdays, these Tuesday nights where we've got to stay at home and watch things like EastEnders and Emmerdale, we're all driving ourselves mad. So what we thought we'd do is we'd drive out Stag Stories again, get in touch with some old players, and hear their stories about their time at Mansfield Town. I'm delighted for this episode. You'll know by the title of the episode anyway, but to be joined by a Stags player who goes all the way back to the turn of the new millennium. 2000 was the year he joined, left in 2002 after Mansfield made it into what is now League One. And since then, he's been on one hell of a journey. Martin Pemberton, good evening. Good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Evening, Craig, and thank you for having me. Absolute pleasure to be on here.
An absolute pleasure to have you, mate. Now, you know what? I was talking to someone today about how quickly time flies. And in my head, the year 2000 was only probably 2, 3, 4 years ago max. But in actual fact, it's quite a long time now, isn't it?
It's absolutely, yeah. I mean, when you think back from the time we're going to talk about now, 22 years ago, 23 years ago plus, it's incredible. Yeah, and it's right. It does speed up the older you get. It does speed up.
So for those Stags fans who will have recognised the name and gone, Martin Pemberton.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I remember early noughties, that sort of promotion winning.
Yeah.
Just let people know what you've been up to since leaving the Stags in a nutshell, and what it is that you're up to now. We always like to check in with
Yeah.
where people are. So where are you now? What are you up to now?
So I finished playing in 2007. So obviously I left the Stags 2002, went to Stockport for a couple of years, had a few injury problems there. So I never really showed the form what I had showed at the Stags just due to injuries and stuff like that. Then I ended up finishing full-time football, and I ended up playing semi-pro at Farsley Celtic, who were in North West Leeds. We ended up going from which was the Unibond, I think, first division, to the Unibond Prem, to the Conference North, and then we made it all the way to which is the National League now. So for a club like Farsley, that was like a monumental effort, incredible to kind of get to that level. Also, it was a good time because I got to finish sort of my career playing with some of my friends who I'd played with in younger years. So there was kind of a symmetry to that. Then I retired in 2007, and I became a learning mentor for disadvantaged children in primary school. So where they sometimes are struggling in school, and then they go to a unit and get a little bit of emotional and social sort of behavioural problems. I did that for 6 years. In the meantime as well, I thought what would be a good idea was I'd finished my career that I'd done this thing I'd done all my life. I thought I'd get married, get a new job, move house, and become a dad in about a 12-month period. So I'd just say to anyone, I recommend that you don't do those things that quickly, because it won't have a very good effect on your stress levels. And as a result of that and other things, retiring being one of them, actually, and the transition out of football, 6 years after retirement, I found myself really, really struggling in terms of my mental health, anxiety, depression, to the point where I was suicidal. I was having suicidal thoughts, just really, really struggling in life. And then kind of, whether it's luck, chance, fate, whatever, started to kind of figure out what had happened and why. And from that point, I was able to start a recovery process. But like most things, you think once you figure stuff out, you're just going to go in a straight line to success, and it never happened. So it's actually through falling back many times that then I decided at that point I was sick of feeling better and then relapsing and then going back to that dark place. So I thought to myself, what am I doing when I am doing well and feeling good? So it's just maybe a moment of inspiration. I don't know. I wrote down the things. I was like, this, and this. And then when I stopped and counted them, there were 11 things on the piece of paper, like a team sheet, right? So, and obviously,
isn't it?
Yeah. So I was like, and then I went back to even when I was an apprentice at Oldham back in like 1992. So even last century, when you say that to the kids, they think you're ancient. But I always remember managers saying, if you win your battles 1 to 11, you win the game. And that kind of just was ringing in my head. So I had these 11 things, and then I had this vision of this team sheet of your players on the pitch and setting them up. And I thought to myself, this could be something really good for other people to learn about, that if this has worked for me and these are the things that I'm doing, and they're not new things, they're not revolutionary, they've always been there and will always be around. It's a really simple formula. I thought, wow, maybe this could be something. So once I started, I trained as a NLP practitioner, did some EFT, all the kind of holistic training. Also, I did that to kind of, for an educational purposes, but it was also to help myself through that time, try to understand the mind a little bit more. Did CBT, became a personal trainer, fitness coach, and so then I started moving into kind of health and well-being, running fit camps, personal training, and then actually, I know we spoke just before how things kind of happen where you just find yourself stumbling into something. There was a construction company running a well-being and mental health initiative at their premises in Bradford, and one of the ladies who came to my fit camp worked there, and I think the DM wanted someone to speak, and this lady went, "Oh, I know a guy who might be quite good to come and talk about some of this stuff." So I got the invite, and then it kind of just rolled from there. So I went and did a first bit of public speaking about mental health awareness, sharing what of my experiences, the recovery, all these things. And then it just kind of went from there. And then just 1 to 11, it kind of was born. And then that became the name of the company, and then started coaching and trying to help people and do talks and workshops. And it just went from there, mate.
Ah, brilliant. Absolutely. It's great to hear that, something, it's all connected and it's all woven together over the years, and through that darkness comes light. And
Yeah.
one thing, this Stag Stories episode will take a different turn to what others were, and there's a purpose for that, and I'll come on to that in a second. Usually Stag Stories are all, stupid stories about, we've had stories about youth teamers having to run a tunnel of death through the tunnel at Field Mill whilst they're pelting them with sponges and that sort of thing, and a lot worse, and all of that sort of thing, because that's the light of it. That's the light of football.
Yeah.
There's a reason that we do this podcast. There's a reason that we're here. We've just celebrated promotion for the first time since you guys achieved it, which is great. So we're on this euphoric high at the minute. But what happens after that is you get a bit of a crash. You get that sort of element where you miss it. And there's one thing which I've not told anybody yet. A couple of people in the podcast group know, and I've not really been completely open about it. But over the last probably 12 weeks or so, I've actually been through counselling myself, and it's one thing which has had a real big impact on my life. And the reasons for it, I've sort of figured out, are because of football, are because of certain things which have happened over the last couple of years. So you can't quite see behind me, but I have got like a big montage of from the year we got to the playoff final 2 seasons, where I was doing commentary for Mansfield 3.2 and really enjoying like my career and my life and just everything that went with it. And then all of a sudden, for reasons that I can't go into on here because it's all political red tape behind the scenes, that disappeared and went away. And actually, whilst on the pitch we were getting better, I found it a real struggle to go back to being just a fan. And doing the podcast every week, it helped, but also at the same time it hindered, because I wasn't going to games and enjoying it as a supporter. I wasn't able on the podcast to sort of talk and bring the conversations and bring people in the same way I was. And again, it was the same this season. And to say that this is the season where we've got promoted, it's one which we'll remember forever in our history. And that in my mind to go, well, actually, I really didn't like that. I really didn't engage with it. I find that a real issue. But on the flip side of it, people come up to us all the time, and especially since COVID, saying, your podcast, what you do has kept us going. It kept us connected with the club. And one thing we've always wanted to do is sort of be positive about mental health, encourage people to talk out, because yes, we do have a proportion of our audience which are female, but predominantly because it is what it is and it's grown from what it is, we are a predominantly male audience, and men generally do not talk about their mental health and well-being. And as this is going to go out in Mental Health Awareness Week and month, it's the right time to talk about it and sort of share those stories. So that's a big reason why we wanted to sort of get onto that, and we're going to come into that a little bit. One thing a little bit later on. One thing that's always sort of intrigued my mind as a journalist and as a fan as well is what happens in life after football, which is again another reason for your story, Pete. And these little things which we talk about generally on the podcast, like a lone player comes in January, doesn't hit the ground running. Well, there's a reason for it, because they've got 4 kids and they come in from the community of Scotland, and there's little elements which people don't think about, because people look at it as, oh, it's a game, it's about winning and losing. But these people are human beings, and there's a process which happens after. So I think it's a really important conversation to have and to talk about mental health and things like that as well. But before we do, obviously, there is a bit of a law. We need to talk about your Stags journey and just reflect on those good times, because from your time at Stags was a longer part of your longer overarching journey, which is what's led you to where you are now. So let's go all the way back to the year 1999, where Mansfield Town haven't even come on your radar yet. The new millennium comes, and you wherever you are, and you're ticking over, and you think, what's coming up next? And then in the summer, Mansfield Town appears on your radar. How does Martin Pemberton end up as a Stag?
Brilliant. So 1999 I was playing. So I'll just reverse a little bit just to give people a bit of context. I went to Doncaster Rovers in 1997, and I went at a time when I didn't realise the club was in so much turmoil. The chairman, Ken Richardson, at the time, so a bit of a character anyway, but that's by the by. So I stayed there for about a year, and then I went to Scunthorpe for a little bit, and I didn't well there for a few months, but the manager Brian Laws at the time had said, "Oh, we don't want to re-sign you, but if you want to come back in the pre-season, we'll have a look at you." So he didn't want to pay me over the summer, basically. So I said, "No, thanks." I ended up going to Hartlepool signed on a month to month, and then I think I got injured at the beginning of I think it was September. So in my mind, I thought I'll rehab, get fit. I've not played. I've not done anything wrong. I'll just get another month. But when I went at the end of that month, the manager said to me, "No, we're not renewing your contract." So I was out of the game. So like that, from being, just a big crash and a shock to, and that probably, when I think back now, as we're going to talk about mental health, that was probably one of my first real instances, and without knowing, of being depressed, because when I came out of the game that first time in '98, I did not want to read about football, see it, listen to it. I went out for about a month just on a bender every night. Just obviously, what you know now, just trying to deal with the loss. And that loss is something we'll talk about on this, because for a lot of us, there's a loss that's happened, which then sparks off a lot of the trouble that we have in our heads. But so I didn't want to know about football. A guy from Harrogate Town just kept hassling me to come and play. So he just kept pestering me, and I'm glad he did. I went down there, played for about a year, and then a guy called Trevor Staunton, God bless his soul, who's no longer here. He was the manager at Bradford Park Avenue, and he said, "Oh, come and play for me, son." And I'm from Bradford anyway, so it made sense. And so in 1999 to 2000, I played at Park Avenue, and it was in that year, I've got a lot to thank Trevor for, because he kind of helped me to get my confidence back. He believed in me and wanted me to play and do well. And actually, he knew Billy Dearden. So there's the link between how the Stags came on our radar. I didn't have a clue. And then Trevor said to me, "Oh, Pembo, I've got you a trial down at Mansfield." I was like, wow. So for me, although it wasn't, I always wanted to get back into the game full time, it wasn't on my radar. So got to come down in the summer of 2000, which for me, I was excited, obviously, and trained. And I had a 2-week trial. I got injured, I think, after the first week. So obviously I was a little bit concerned. I thought, "Oh, I've blown my chance." But Billy did, and what a man. He pulled me aside and he said, "Listen, son, I'm going to sign you, so don't worry about it." So the sense of relief for me then, and so I was back in professional football. So I'll again, there's loads of people that I'll be forever indebted to for giving me that opportunity. So I'm back in the game. 2000, I quit my job where I was at. I was doing like a security officer at a benefits agency, playing semi-pro, and I'm back in full-time football. And then just come down and just start on that journey and excitement of, well, yeah, I suppose pre-seasons were, I won't say they were exciting, but it was brilliant to be back in that environment, and then to go and then play and have that first season and do well. And the new stadium obviously had been built, and there was a lot of changes going on, and a few of the lads obviously met Chrissy Greenacre, who became one of my, I choose to travel in with Chrissy and one of my best mates. And then just having that season, and then to get another year at the end of that was just, again, for me, just that sense of achievement and pride that I'd been able to come back into the pro game and do well enough that someone thought I was worthy of another contract. And then obviously season 2000, 2001 and 2, it was just unforeseen, but absolutely and not just because we got promoted, it's the dressing room that we had, but it was the style of football that we played that was just, for me, in that division, was way and above the standard at that time of how we played. There was a lot of freedom. The young players were coming in: Liam Lawrence, Bobby Hassel, Leroy Williamson. Then we've got Les Robinson. We've got Adam Barrett had come in, and it just, I don't know, people come together at a certain time, just a group of people, and obviously Kevin Pilkington in goal, and just, and then we just hit the ground. We just seemed to hit the ground running. Pre-season was a different pre-season. They didn't have us legging it everywhere, running. We were playing 5-a-side every day, and just, I don't know, there was a real joy and freedom about playing football that I'd not experienced in the pro game before.
I mean, to be fair, if you're as a group happy and motivated playing 5-a-side on what was the world's worst AstroTurf pitch, talking about the sand-based one at horrendous pitch. No longer there. They ripped it down in the end.
Yeah.
It's a different one now. It is a crazy time to think as well. And I want to just take you back a step to when you started, because you mentioned there that you picked up an injury in your first week. I know that you had a lot of which a lot of Stags fans might not have known. You had a lot of injury problems when you were younger as well. Didn't you have a thing with your back or something?
Oh yeah, Craig. So you know, when you as a kid, you love football. You know, if you love football, you're just playing every day. And I think I was about 11, and I hurt my back in a game, and we didn't find out for like 3 years, but it turned out to be a stress fracture. So for the next 3 years, I'd play on and off, play for a couple of weeks, week off, play for a couple of weeks. But we only found the injury because I'd got to the final trials of the Lilleshall National Football School. So where the best players from the country go to this football school for 2 years, you've got to have a medical. And that's when they discovered the injury. So I had to have a year out at 14, a complete year, except for swimming and walking. So I couldn't do PE at school or anything. That was quite a tough time as well. So when I look back now and I say it to people, but the other thing I always say is, you could probably think at that time, oh my God, I've got this back injury, got to have a year out. That's going to be the end of my career, maybe. But I never for 1 second doubted that I don't know. It's a weird thing, you know, when you just know something. Even though I had this injury, I thought, I'll be all right. I'll get fit. I'll come back and I'll get a pro contract. And I did do those things, but yeah, not knowing, you know, you didn't know in those days. So playing with a stress fracture, but actually that probably then led to a weakness in my back, which then meant 2 back operations later in a career. It kind of takes its toll, you know.
Yeah, it could have been all so different as well, couldn't it? When you sort of think back and you think, because it's undiagnosed for so long, that could have caused so many more problems. So actually, you know, there was someone looking out for you somewhere in terms of getting to that national stage where you had to have a medical, because especially signing for a pro club, you know, medicals now. I love the behind the scenes documentaries and stuff where they properly go into detail. It's a lot more rigorous.
Yeah.
There are mental health checks there as well, which are great, welfare checks and everything. But back then it was pretty much, can you run? Can you any trouble before that? You know, nah, I'm all right. Out of ex-players that have said, "Oh, I knew I was injured, but I was just limp on it and just crazy."
Yeah, they'd lay you on the physio's table, twist your knee a couple of times. How's that? Yeah, do a little knee. Fine. We can't see everything else that I've got.
Madness, utter madness. So obviously you've recovered from your injury. You've sort of started to break in.
Yeah.
Like, how long did it take you to acclimatise? Because, like you say, you'd had that thing where you were a pro, then you dropped out and sort of you'd adjusted your mindset. You know, you'd got yourself a full-time job. You were content enough playing semi-pro and just getting along with life, but you're still at a relatively young age. How do you get back into the mindset of then becoming a pro footballer again and having to constantly perform in a squad which was very small for what it was, with very limited resource?
Yeah, I think probably, you know, when I went out of it the first time, I don't think even though I was devastated, I don't think the dream had actually ever gone away, if that makes sense. So even though I wasn't always thinking, oh, I'm going to play semi-pro and get fit and do well, and then I'll get back to a pro club, I think in the back of my mind, just enjoying football again. And then, because I think that I'd fallen out of love with the game as well at the end, towards going from club to club. Felt like I never got really treated well as well, and then you come out of it. So I think to have people show faith in you, you're almost, that gives you this boost that you're good enough and that you're ready. So for Billy to say that to me, that was a really, really pivotal point, because a manager who'd seen me for a week said, I believe in you and I'm going to give you a contract. And it's that faith then that you want to repay to him. And I know if you've probably spoke to a load of the other lads, everybody like loved Billy. You'd run through a brick wall for him because of how he was, and his man management was brilliant in terms of how he treated everybody. So to get yourself back into that mindset of being a pro, I think I always as well believed that I was good enough then. So I belong there, if that makes sense. So for me, it was just like, right, I'm back now. Let's go again.
At what point did you sort of have a bit of a sense that that squad and that group could go on to do something special? Because 2 years ago, we did a series with Andy White, your former mate. He sort of like came on as co-host, got that book of contacts out, and we spoke to a lot of your former teammates. We had Pilks on, who was my hero growing up.
Yeah.
So that was a dream that night. We even connected with Chrissy,
Yeah.
which was great. Robbo came on. He had some stories. And we even had Baz Statham on as well, you know, the physio,
Yeah.
the coach's perspective. And then we finished it with a live event with Skip and Richo at the ground, which was phenomenal. But every single one said they knew there was something brewing for, you know, not just that season, but perhaps the season before. Did you get a sense of that after the first couple of months or so, that something started?
I think for me, definitely. So I think towards the end of the season, but for me, pre-season, I think we played Middlesbrough at Field Mill in a friendly, and we were really. I know people say it's a friendly, but they weren't messing around, and we were very, very good. And so I think the football we were playing at that time, I was thinking like we've got a good team, especially when you see the young players, you know, Liam Lawrence, Bobby Hassel, and all them. Some of the things they were doing in training as well. You think we've got a decent team here and we're playing football. You're never quite sure how you're going to match up, but once we've gone through those first few games and actually then we knew there was nobody to fear really, and that we felt we could match anybody on our day would be more than a game for anyone in the division. So I think the belief sort of, for me anyway, pre-season was like this could be a good season.
There's a couple of things that I want to sort of delve into, like in terms of things which happened whilst you were playing, and then we'll move on to. Yeah. And the first one which springs to mind is double red card gate. So the 2001-2002 season, yourself and a teammate, Luton, I believe it was. I can't remember that game. So you were talking earlier about like sort of your career started, you know, sort of mid-90s.
Yeah.
I was born in 1991, so I don't want to make you. And
well, I started as an apprentice, like what would be a scholar now, academy player, a year after you were born, 1992. So that tells you.
People will probably say this now after 7 series of this podcast that I still haven't got a clue what I'm talking about. I had no idea what was going off in 01-02, and I can't remember the Luton game. So talk us through it from your perspective. What on earth happened? 2 red cards in the 90th minute?
Yeah, so the Luton game, obviously the 3 teams that went up that season, Plymouth, Luton, and then us. Plymouth were really respectful. The clubs there was a good sort of relationship. Joe Kinnear was at Luton one year, and I think there were a few of them. They were a bit big time, to be fair, Luton. So I think they thought they were going to come to us. It's just little old Mansfield will roll them over, and actually it turned out very differently. Obviously, Chrissy scores early doors, and we absolutely battered them, to be fair. And then obviously I score a free kick, so that, like, you know, what a great feeling to do that. And then it was just, and then Brad has scored, made it 4-1. And then it just, at the end of the game, they brought a sub on, and he was just going around trying to do everybody. So he's tried to like go through me on the touchline, and I don't know why, but I just reacted and kicked out at him after he tried to, because he, you know, I thought it was a bad tackle. But as soon as I did it, I knew I was in trouble. And then so obviously I was gutted, walked down the touchline into the dressing room, and about a minute later, Braddock follows me in, going off his head, throwing things around and kicking off. I'm like, what's happened to you? And he got sent off as well. So it just, at the end of the game, it were a bittersweet moment. So obviously we beat him. I scored a great goal, great team performance, but just reacted, mate. It's just one of them things. I don't usually lose my temper, but that he just got to me, that particular play, and I reacted, and I shouldn't have done. And I always, when I do talk, sometimes I always say about just not reacting straight away, because actually it cost me a couple of weeks' wages, and then I went out of the team for the next 6 weeks because I had to wait my chance. So the lesson was, you've got to like keep your head, you know. And it was silly because we were 4-1 up. We'd battered them. Didn't need to do anything, but the red mist came down, and I.
It happens to us all, to be fair. But
yeah,
story that is as well. Like, you know, if ever you were on like a would I lie to you, for people that didn't know you in your talks, the headline would be, I scored a free kick and then got sent off in the 90th minute, and people, what you on about?
yeah.
Really calm, cool and collected guy, a tempered bone in his body, and then all, isn't it? It's an absolutely crazy world. Really, really is. That season, of course, was special, as we know. But halfway through the train derailed a little bit because of Billy Dearden's departure. First and foremost, obviously, let's go back to Leicester at the FA Cup game.
Yeah.
Billy's last. It's been one which has been spoken about quite a lot in this podcast. Please go back and listen if you've not already done so. Still out there. What are your memories of that FA Cup game and, of course, the subsequent events afterwards?
Yeah, I mean, again, we beat Huddersfield, haven't we? I think the round before, Chrissy had scored a hat-trick. And yeah, I mean, again, confidence-wise, I don't think we didn't go there thinking, oh, we knew it was going to be a tough game, but we were never overawed. And I think we proved that in the game. We gave a really good account of ourselves and matched them pretty well. So I think that we were disappointed maybe not to get a replay out of it, but we were satisfied with his performance. I know I played in midfield that day with Leroy, and we were up against Muzzy, and Dennis Wise and Robbie Savage, and I think we gave a good account of ourselves. I always enjoyed playing in midfield with Leroy. Actually, we had a good little partnership going there, and then disappointment at the end of the game. But you've done well, so you're coming off feeling good. And then in the dressing room, the gaffer makes the announcement that he's going to Notts County, and it's just like pin dropped. Like no one knew. It was just, and then afterwards. They'd booked us a trip away as well. I think Andy had said it on one of the podcasts, probably just to soften the blow for the lads and let them forget about it for a little bit. So we kind of went away and we had a really, really good time. And then
Andy always said it was a really good training session.
Oh, yeah.
He always Andy, he's the ultimate pro, isn't he? Like, straight leg. He's like, we had a really good week's training. Everyone who came on just went, Andy, you might have had a good week training, mate, but the only training we were doing is to and from the bar.
It was the bicep. That's the only training that was getting going. It was the biceps, drinking the pints and singing on the karaoke. I think that was that was what was going on. But so and then obviously it was good that Skip got the job, because obviously he'd been the number 2. So for continuity for us, knowing him and stuff like that, I think that even though it was a bit of a shock and maybe it was a bit of a derailment, it was better that we had somebody who knew us. And then obviously Rick George became his number 2, who knew the players, rather than maybe getting someone in who didn't know the lads or was a different manager. We might not have gone up, to be fair, because obviously then different ideas and things like that,
I mean, I don't know the former chairman personally, but judging by his history at the club, it was only ever going to be either one of his mates or an appointment from within. And actually, you got a little bit of credit that,
Yeah, definitely.
Everyone's sort of gone, that team was predominantly made up of Skip and Richo's youth team.
There's a few, quite a few.
So actually, it made perfect sense to
give
him the job and carry on. And of course, you did. And there's 2 famous nights or 2 famous games which everybody sort of looks back on. Of course, the final game of the season, and then of course the one against Cheltenham, which sort of really erupted things. What are your memories of them? Because obviously, as a footballer, you always strive for success in anything you do in life, and obviously, a promotion for a footballer is the box ticker. And was it the first proper one on your professional CV in terms of being a pro footballer?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I've always said, even throughout my career, that season, those 2 years at Stags, where I felt like a proper footballer, because you was in the team regularly, you got a decent amount of appearances, and I think for me it's the contribution that you make as well. So if you contribute a lot to a successful team, or in whatever way, in whatever you're doing, I think you always feel better about yourself. Yeah, the Cheltenham game, I remember the atmosphere was amazing. That was probably, out of the 2, I'd probably say that was the highest pressure game, because that was we had to get a result against them just to kind of close that gap and at least make it competitive. So I remember probably being more nervous for that game than I was at any of the others in the season. And obviously the atmosphere and the fans, they drag you through, and we got a great result. And then obviously that momentum just carries on for the game against Carlisle. And that Cheltenham have got to go, I think, did they have to go down to, was it Plymouth maybe, or some...
Skip told a story on the live night and before when he's been on, and it's basically he knew that day that you'd get promoted because the manager of Plymouth said, "We absolutely hate them, so you will go up. We will beat them. We hate them."
Paul Sturrock it was. Yeah, I remember he said, "Will," and as I went back and I alluded to before, the respect between Plymouth and Stags was in terms of the games we'd had. They beat us 3-0 at home and they beat us 1-0 down at theirs, but they were very competitive games and they liked the way we played. There was a respect there. So I know the manager, Paul Sturrock, wanted us to go up. So I knew that they would, obviously they were champions. I knew they were really strong. So for us then to just come to the Carlisle game, it was just if we play to our potential, then we should take care of business. Obviously, we get that Wayne Cordon super strike right early doors, and then Andy scores, and it's 2-0. And from there, really, we pretty much coasted it for the rest of the game, didn't we? So it was I remember towards the end of the game, just you can feel, because I was on that side of the pitch where the main stand is, and you can sense everybody wanting to get on the pitch and just the excitement when you get to those last few minutes and you know you've done it. And then, yeah, just incredible. Yeah, it was brilliant.
It's amazing. Like, it makes the hairs stand up on the back of your neck when you talk about those things, because obviously we've just witnessed it again here and things like that. And it's memories that you have. Like this season, I've been watching it with my dad, so to be able to share that with him, that's, we probably might not get that. So it's really, really good.
Yeah,
I'm at an age where I can appreciate it this time, where I wasn't back.
Yeah.
But from the highs of that, you then, you're out of contract, you're looking towards the summer, you're desperate, I imagine, to stay with that group and go on that journey again. But for whatever reason,
Yeah.
it didn't happen. What happened?
Well, the chairman, as we've mentioned, I'll say it was a character. We'll leave it at that. Is that so? I think it was just at that stage in terms of the season I had. I thought again, I think I'd made a massive contribution, pivotal role for me in terms of consistency and playing really well. And then the contract that he came back with, in my view, it was a little bit of a slap in the face. And it's your job, it's your career. You've got to earn a living, and so for me, then Stockport were interested. So you've got an offer, but yeah, if the chairman would have come up with the right figure, and it didn't have to be much more really, then I was really happy at Mansfield. I always say it; those were the 2 best years of my career, and happiest as well. Not just because of the promotion; it was, like I said earlier, the dressing room, the style of football. I absolutely loved it, and yeah, I would have loved to have stayed, but yeah, the chairman saw things slightly differently to me, and it was one of those where I had to make a decision just for my own, my own future and things like that, really.
And that's a poignant point to actually move on and talk more about footballers in general and the mental health side of it as well. Yeah. A lot of people don't realise and don't give enough credit to the fact that footballers are human beings. They are, superheroes. They are our heroes. We'll remember them forever. That's part and parcel of the game. But at the same time, like you said there, you have to live in contracts. Them days you were pretty much living year by year, unless you had a stable club who were willing to invest. It's a little different now. Mansfield do things in a different way now. We've kept a group together for 3 seasons, and we've done it the same again going into next. But back then it didn't quite happen. How do you sort of have to deal with those sort of emotions and those sort of things to know that to live year by year, because there's only a certain number of clubs within a distance before you have to then think about upping sticks and moving house, and there's £100 in it or whatever, or a league's difference, or a manager that you get on really well with. There's such fine margins which I don't think any of us as support can actually comprehend.
It's you said when you look deeper into it, and again, sometimes when I do the talks around mental health, and before I go into that side of stuff, I always talk a little bit about the football, and I always ask, especially when I do a talk at a workplace, for example, I'll always say to the people in the audience, right, I want you to imagine that you're doing your job, but you've got someone else who's as good as you at your job trying to stop you doing your job. And I said, you've also, while you're doing your job, you've got people who've paid to come and shout whatever they want at you while you're trying to do your job. I said, and then when you've done your job, you'll get someone who's never done your job who will critique you and give you a mark out of 10 for everybody to see how well you did your job that week. And so I said, and so when I explain it like that to them, I said, how well would you be able to do your job? And then they have a different, I suppose, perspective on footballers then, because then it's not just, oh, you kick a ball around and you're lucky. We're very fortunate to do it and we love it. But like you said, there's another element in terms of what comes with that you have to deal with. And then, yeah, you're playing for a contract. People are trying to get another contract and stop you. So it's constant competition all the time. And I believe that if you don't manage that correctly for yourself, does take a toll on you.
How many of your former colleagues from whatever club it may be that you've caught up with in recent years and had conversations with have also had that light bulb moment and gone, do you know what, I wish that I'd have been able to manage that better? Because you hear so many horror stories of footballers who fall by the wayside because of varying factors like that. The worst one I can give an example to actually is, and we don't know the full details behind it, but there's a former Mansfield player called Lee Collins who in COVID was playing down at Yeovil, staying in hotels and obviously not being allowed to socialise and stuff like that because of the restrictions, and sadly took his own life, which is really, really sad. How many of your former colleagues have you sort of had these conversations with and gone, I wish we'd have sort of had a little bit more information and almost a voice to say, I need help in this situation?
I think everyone I've spoke to who's retired has faced a challenge after retiring. And I think when we look at football, and this is just my opinion, it's not fact. And of course, every game could be your last. You know that your career is going to come to an end. You do, but I don't think they can prepare you for retirement, because I don't think football truly understands it themselves, if that makes sense. So they can say things to you and give you advice, but I'm not sure that there's enough information or awareness for players to actually understand what the predicament could be when you retire. The closest thing, and this is just my experience, it's very much like it's a loss. So it's very much like grief. Now, a lot of people will say, oh, they'll just associate grief with when you lose a loved one, but grief is about losing something that you love, right? So I always said, if you've been in this environment for so long that you've absolutely loved your whole life, you're good at it, you do well at it, you've got this camaraderie, all your teammates. When you lose your support structure, you can't do the thing that you used to do and love so much every day. There's a massive loss there. And I think so many players are not either informed or don't understand that it's actually going to be like grief. And so once you finish, don't be surprised if you have this feeling of loss and helplessness and hopelessness, because actually, why wouldn't you? And also, I think it'd be great if we could help the families understand that as well, because when you retire, people think, well, if you've got to be sad about, you only kicked a football about or whatever, but there's like I said, grief is grief. And I didn't understand it at the time when I went through it. It was only after, retrospectively, that I thought, wow, yeah, you've done. And it's like, you don't even kind of get to decide when it's over as well. So so.
Well, you haven't, you going, now I'm not paying you that. No, see you later.
And so that's the preparation that I wish they would say to players, to liken it to, it's going to be a grieving period because then I think people would understand it a little bit more and be a little bit more prepared. I think then also we could lead players down the avenue of find something else that it might not light you up as much as football, but start having an interest in something before you finish that's just going to give you that that kind of buzz and that same kind of thing, because it's the loss of the feeling as well, that you get the training every day, the banter with the lads, the running out on a Saturday in front of a crowd, the competitiveness, the winning, the losing, the ups, the downs. You miss it all. And so I think that's the biggest thing that I've noticed with everyone I've spoke to. They go through a grieving process, but they don't know that they're going through a grieving process, and then that's when they start to have trouble with the head.
And then I think you've got to add in other factors to that as well. And if you're lucky in football, there's some anomalies that do go on playing into the late 30s, early 40s.
Yeah.
But realistically, I'm 33. If I was a footballer now, I know that my time in football would be, I'd be lucky to get another year deal realistically, or else. And to be that age at 33 and go, my career is now over. What am I going to do for the rest of my life?
Yeah.
I'm not a footballer, and I feel like my career's not really taken off. So to then go to the other side and go, well, now it's finished.
Yeah.
I have no idea how I would deal with that, and I completely resonate with that whole loss thing. It goes back to what we were talking about earlier about losing the commentary and doing something which you're so used to doing a routine, and you feel comfortable within that environment, to then go to something else. It's I completely get it.
Do you know what? Something you said then, and I remember thinking this at some point after retiring, and I thought, is this it? Is this all life's got for me now? Because I always, and I say this when I do the talks, how could anything ever compare to football if that's what you know, I always say I fell in love at eight years old, and like it, you know, and to do that and all the highs and the lows and the ups, the downs, the injuries, the comebacks, all the bits you get, and then it's over. And I just think that that's what we're not prepared for. That nothing, and so to say to players, just understand that nothing is ever going to compare to it. So don't even bother trying, because you'll find yourself in a not a really good place. But then so many of us then will go down different roads to try to either forget about it or to create that high, be it through substances, drugs, alcohol, whatever. We kind of, a lot of us just fall off and literally just disappear, don't we? Because again, grief's a thing. If you don't know you're in grief, how would you know? You're going to go out there and just, there's going to be all kinds of behaviors you're going to do to try to soothe the pain. And so I always say to people, a lot of the time and with the clients we work with now, pretty much bar none, everyone who comes to us with a problem of the mind, there's always been a hit to the heart somewhere, a loss or something that's then sparked them down that road where the mind goes quite dark, you know.
And I think that's a really important thing to talk about, because people, I think, to understand where you are now and how to get better, you have to understand the journey and the route which you've been through to get to that point. And footballers especially don't necessarily have that, because they play football from a young age. They get through an academy, they do the YTS or get in a youth team academy scholarship or whatever it is now. They get a decent pay packet and they're earning money from a young age, and they're getting all this status which comes with it. Regardless of what level you're at, you're always going to get the higher up it is that you go. And then all of a sudden overnight you've not got it and you don't know how to deal with it. And again, it comes back to that thing, doesn't it, of at 33, 34, I would think I'd struggle to find anyone that could truly hand on heart say that I feel like I'm mature. And then to go through that, you're absolutely spot on what you say, the grieving process with it as well.
Yeah.
It's such a strange thing to do.
Yeah.
And obviously you do go down the line, you do sort of come out the other end of it. Like like I mentioned earlier on, I've just done sort of like 6 weeks or so of counselling. I don't feel like I'm through the end of it yet. I think there's a lot more of the journey to come, but I feel in a better place than what I did.
Yeah, that's good.
Now, I'm looking forward to what can come again next season and put positive changes in my life. But it took a long time for me to get there and say I need help and make those steps to get there. How do you encourage people to take that first step? Because especially in males, it's really, really difficult, because there's this old-fashioned stigma around it where I'm all right, I'm a man, I'm no wrong with me, I'm fine, grit your teeth and get on with it. Well, it is okay to go in a corner and cry.
Yeah, I think so. For me, my way of doing it is I'm completely open about my experience. But I wasn't always. So this is what I say to most men: think that if you're going to come forward and admit that you don't feel all right, that's being vulnerable, which they don't want to do. But actually, it's in the vulnerability that you find your strength. Because I always say to people, once you can be, I say it really, if you can be all right about having mental health issues yourself, if you can be all right about it, it actually almost instantly is not as much of a problem anymore. As soon as you go, yeah, I'm a bit depressed. Yeah, I've got a bit of depression, me. Yeah, I have actually. and go, yeah, why wouldn't I? It actually almost don't go away completely, but it kind of softens. And so that's why one of the elements of the 1 to 11 is this acceptance. And so, but one of the other elements of the 1 to 11 is beliefs, right? So if you think about it for men, often I'll work with men and I'll say, what does it mean to be a man? And they'll reel off a load of words, strong, right? But your beliefs are your programming that's running in the background that runs you, that you don't even know about. So if your belief of what it is to be a man is to be strong, to never admit stuff, that you can handle everything, without even knowing it, you are never going to come forward and tell everyone that you're feeling sad, because you're going to feel weak, which means your beliefs will go, hang on a minute, you've gone against what we thought it was to be a man. So now you come forward and say, I'm struggling with my mental health. You're now not going to be a man in your own mind. So you're never going to do that. So you're going to keep quiet. So it's not that complex, but to start off for a lot of blokes, the understanding of you've got this program running that's stopping you from coming forward. And I think as well, one of the other things we've often talked about is as well, when we do talk about men not talking, I always think to myself, do we then encourage them not to talk because we keep saying we don't talk? It's like it's a bit of a backwards and forwards one, but I just know that with all the men I've worked with, that first step of being vulnerable has been the key, because it's just getting past that idea that if you're struggling with your mental health, that you somehow won't be a man anymore. For me, I can go, you're very much a man. In fact, you'll elevate yourself by being open and honest about it,
Completely agree. I think it's that thing, isn't it, of you want to protect yourself because you're so scared of what people might perceive you to be.
Definitely.
Whether they perceive you to be weak, whether they perceive you to be less person or way, you've just got to get past that. And once you do, you start to find the right track. And one of the most powerful things was the video, which I think it was Norwich that did on social media. And you look at people and they might dress in a certain way, they might be a bit moody or a bit standoffish, and you think it's them, but actually it could be the one who's really bright and bubbly. And it is really important to check up on your mates, and that's exactly why we wanted to put this out. Here we've got another. I think about watching stags over the years, and especially when in my younger days, I'm not a very social person. I don't go to I don't drink. Pubs fill me with fear. I don't like going to them. I'm very much an indoors person. It takes a lot to sort of speak to new people, which is a bit daft considering that I do this and work as a journalist. But it's that you become comfortable in yourself, but then you have that one thing, especially when I was single and living at home with my dad. It was the only thing that got me out of the house was going to watch football. And then suddenly that not to be there for 6, 8, whatever amount of weeks it is, it's longer than what you think. Suddenly, oh my God, what am I doing? And then when it comes back round, but then do I not want to go again? What did you start thinking? Oh, what did that person think of me? Because they go as a group of 5, 6, and there's just me on the next seat on my own. And I think it's a big, powerful thing to go. If you've made a connection with someone at football, go out your way to find your name, because football it's the conversation starter. Reason. So, as your summer been, what do you think of this signing? Get a little WhatsApp group or something. Involve them in those conversations, and hopefully from this, people will take away that fact of, if it starts a conversation, not about feelings or directly asking the question, because I think the worst thing someone can do is going, "Are you okay?" As much as the worst thing to do is just go, "Yeah, I'm fine," because you don't want to worry someone, you don't want to burden someone. And if you have that conversation and go, "Oh, what did you think of the retain list? I'm a little bit gutted, such and such as I'm a bit gutted that Pemberton's gone. I thought he was a decent player for us." Starts a conversation, and then once you've broken down those barriers and you've got that fluidity going, all of a sudden you go, "So how are you then, mate? Are you missing it?" And then go, "Yeah." And then it's those little things where open the door. Do you fancy going for a coffee? Do you fancy going for a walk around the res? And all of a sudden, someone who's on that brink of going, I don't want to be here anymore, and having those really dark, sadistic, horrible thoughts,
Yeah.
goes, actually, no, I've got something to hang on to in that beacon of light. So
definitely. I think, and well, like everybody, if you ask anybody if they're all right, everyone says they're okay, don't they? Even if they're, it don't matter who it is. But one of the things I would say to people who are listening to this is one thing I always tell my clients and work with them on, especially when you talked about this, how other people perceive us. What I say to people is, the number one thing to understand is nobody sees you the way that you see you. I said it could be your mum, your dad, your sister, your best mate, your partner. They will all see you differently than how you see you and how each other sees you. So that once you understand that, the only person that you need to work on how you feel about you is actually you, because there's nothing that you can do to change someone's perception of you unless they want to. So for a lot of people, they spend a lot of time worrying about what will so-and-so think. But once you understand that you have zero control over that, it's only what you think of you that's important, you can start to put that down and take a bit of pressure, because people will think and they do think what they want of you, don't they? I always say to people, do you like everybody, and does everybody like you? And the answer's no, and that's all right. But I think it's getting people to that point where they understand that it's how you see you. And that's what I discovered through my own recovery process, that when I was able to think about my own self-esteem, confidence, acceptance of me, not as a footballer anymore, just of me, not the footballer, put down the ego and the label of this footballer thing that you hang on to, that actually go, right, no, well, I'm okay for me. And once you're okay for you, it really does change so much. Now you're not wasting loads of energy worrying about what other people think, because you actually go, they're going to think what they want anyway.
Absolutely, 100%. And you know what I do find interesting as well is the fact that you're so open and honest about talking about your story as well. We're obviously advocates for mental health and for people like each other, but we wouldn't be if we had not been through certain things ourselves. And obviously, you know, I heard a couple, like I said earlier, heard a couple of podcasts, and one thing really resonated with me, and I've had this feeling a couple of times in my life, and that is that feeling of I've gone from one thing to another, and all of a sudden I'm off for a few weeks, and I'm really struggling to go back. Take us back to that time, and then, because I know that was a pivotal time to where you got to where you are now with 1 to 11. You had a generic job, like you mentioned earlier. You were doing some sort of support work, had a bit of time off sick, and then you just didn't want to go back. And how you got to having those conversations of being able to wake up one day and saying, do you know what, I think I need to do something about this.
So it was, I think, summer 2013. It was absolutely boiling, but I'm in a fleece and full kit. I'm freezing, so I've got the man flu. Right, so I have to have a few days off work. In that time as well, I mean, again, when you look back, you can see things. There was a bit of a power struggle going on in the job I was in, and I was in the middle of that, so there was bits of stress. So I had a few days off. I was due to come back, and actually I was sat with my daughter, who was 5 at the time, and we were just watching TV, and then for whatever reason, I still don't really know, just got this massive wave of emotion come over me, like I'd never felt this deepest sadness, and a tear just started rolling down my face. Now, again, you've got your daughter at the side of you, you're a dad, you're a man, don't want her to see me crying, so you slyly come out of the room, and I kind of went into the kitchen to see my ex-wife now, and just broke down, and I just said, I can't go into work. And I felt like, you know, if you're on the bench press and you can't lift the weight off your chest, that's how it felt. But then I immediately went from there to worrying about going to the doctor. What if he didn't believe me? What if he said, get on with it? What, you know, and that, then I was stressed leading up to the appointment. So, but I gets in there, and he gave me a sick note, and he put me, I had a prescription for some tablets, and luckily I got to get into some counselling sessions in Leeds, but it's only because, again, when we talk about somebody being on your side, one space had just become available in the whole of Leeds. And if I hadn't have got that spot, I probably would have had to wait another 6 to 12 weeks. So, I don't know what would have happened. So that was the beginning of that process of starting to kind of identify and I thought to myself, yeah, this is not man flu, especially, you know, when there's that feeling of breaking down, and just like a deepest sadness that I'd never experienced before.
Yeah, I completely get that, because this sort of last year would have been late August, September time. Unexpectedly lost my job, and which I would have been enjoying, and I'd moved in with my missus in a rental, and I'm thinking, well, if I've got my wage coming in, I know we can both afford it. We'd just been on holiday. Then you lose that wage, and you're like, well, how am I now going to pay the rent? And then are we going to lose that? What's she going to think of me? And all of those things come out, and you're struggling to get a job, because my CV was very much in that last couple of years. I'd had job after job after job because of all the circumstances. And you think, it's that perception again, isn't it? And you become a fear factor. You choose then to reach out. But like you're saying, there's such a weight between deciding to reach out and actually to get it. 18, maybe 20 weeks for me to get into counselling. And in that time, I'd had to get a new job. We'd gone through Christmas. We decided to move house again because there were problems with the rent. So that's another level of stress on. And then all of a sudden you get it. But when you do get it, it's worthwhile. But in that period between, the reason why you wanted to do it in the first place is gone, because you're not fit. You all of a sudden you're working again, you're earning again, and then you feel like a bit of a fraud because you feel like you're taking someone else's.
Definitely.
The one thing that I will give them credit for is that they said, when you're in that session, don't think that you don't deserve this time. There is a reason why you are here. So I think what I took away from that, and what I want people to take away from it, is it's not about me. It's not about Pembo. It's what it is. It's about you. Don't feel like you don't deserve someone to listen. Don't feel like you don't deserve help, because there's a reason you've chosen to reach out for it in the first place. So put yourself into it and go and do it. And honestly, at the end of it, you will feel much better from it. On to 11 then, of course, is what you do on a day-to-day. You're clearly so passionate about it, which is really, really great. How has it evolved from that first moment? Because it never set out, did it, to be a business? It was part of your development and your coping strategies to get yourself into a better place.
So I mean, I always say I didn't come up with this idea. It came to me again, you know, through inspiration or whatever, and circumstances. So even then, that's why I'm never bitter about the experiences of having depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, because actually this wouldn't have come out of it. So that had to happen for this to be here now. And so, but my driver behind it actually was when I saw it, and I just thought to myself, as I said earlier, this is really simple. People who like football will get this. People who don't like football will be able to get this. And actually, my driver was, I don't want other people to feel the way that I felt before this came to light. And that was the kind of the mission, really, in terms of, if I could help people understand and see these things and become aware of them and start to practice them, then actually, wow, this could make a difference to either prevention or people being able to recover. So, and then what I also started to notice that it wasn't then just helping people with their mental health, this 1 to 11, these 11 steps. It was helping them with relationships. It was helping them with the physical health. It was helping them in all different kinds of areas of life. So I was like, right, there's something kind of in this. And so then it just started to develop, and then it became the talking gigs started, and then the workshop started. And so then it just became this business of just 1 to 11 it. And me and my partner now, and we've now been with for 4 years now, we use it with people with relationships, like I said, stress, anxiety, all these different things. And we literally, our slogan is like, just 1 to 11 it. You can literally just 1 to 11 pretty much any situation that you've got going on in your life. Because as I said at the beginning, these 11 things, they're not complicated. They've always been around, and they'll always be around. And so if you can address these 11 things in your life and at least just become aware of them and how you're using them, and you can change the way you use them, it makes such a massive difference to how you then feel within your life. And what we say to people is, it's to start enjoy the life that you're living. It's not about making massive changes to your life, changing your job, changing your partner, going on holiday. It's about, can I be happy in the life that I'm currently living? And that's what the 1 to 11 can give people, because once they understand the way their mind's working, it changes the way they feel about the mental health and all other aspects of the life.
If people want to find out more information about 1 to 11 then, and look to get involved and get the help that they might need, whether it's for themselves or a friend, where do people go to find 1 to 11?
Yeah, well, our website is just 1 to 11it.co.uk. Sorry, just 1 to 11itcoaching.co.uk. I'm on Facebook, Martin Pemberton. My partner is Naomi Horn. She often works with the ladies as well, helps them. We're both on Instagram at Martin at 1 to 11. And we're on LinkedIn as well as just 1 to 11it coaching. So yeah, we do individual coaching, workshops, groups, all kinds of stuff. And people can, if they're not feeling too good and you're feeling life's a bit of a struggle, just come and have a chat, and we might be able to help you. We might not, but we'll certainly lend a listening ear for you to kind of have a chat and go from there,
And generally 9 times out of 10, a listening ear is what people need just to get them started as well. So
yeah.
We stick all of those details out in the episode description as well. So do go and check that out. Almost time to let you go. But before we do, of course, this is Stag Stories, and long-time listeners and viewers will know what's about to come next. And that is, competitive side of football is about to come back for you, Pembo, because it's for the It's All About You quiz. So I'll fill you in on what this is. We like to put a little feature in there anyway.
Yeah.
As always here on Mansfield Matters Stag Stories, we can't let you go without a little competition. It's 10 questions all about your time at the club.
Okay.
You've got to figure out how many you can get right. Often on this podcast, I get a lot of slack for these quizzes. So
Right.
I'll categorically say this now. It's the first one that we've done for 2 years.
Yeah.
All questions are created from information sourced on the internet.
Right.
And you may well have spoken about a few of these things during the part of the podcast as well.
Okay.
You're going to be up against the clock with complete the quiz as quickly as you can, but you need to be aware it's plus 5 seconds to your total time for a wrong answer, but it's plus 10 seconds if you pass. So, and this is where the catchphrase comes in, which still hasn't taken off yet, which I'm disappointed about. It's worth a go, even if you don't know. Okay. Are you up for taking on the It's All About You quiz?
Let's do it. Come on.
Here we go. This is the magic of the edit, by the way, because when you listen and watching to the proper version of this, which will go out, you get a nice music bed, you get a clock on screen, and all the little bits of ifs and buts will be edited out. But this is the rule.
Okay.
The time will start after I've asked the first question, and it will stop once you've given your answer to the 10th question. Okay. So here we go. In 3, 2, 1. Against which team did you make your Stags debut?
Oh, pass.
In December 2000, you netted your first Stags goal, a 2-1 defeat against which side?
Not Darlington, was it?
What was your squad number in your first season?
Oh, God. Was it 3?
You were part of the promotion-winning 2001-2002 squad. Name one of the 2 players who scored to seal promotion as the Stags beat Carlisle 2-0 in April 2002.
Wayne Corden, Andy White.
In the same season at Phil Mill, you were sent off in the 90th minute against Luton. Which of your teammates joined you in getting their marching orders at the same time?
Shane Bradley.
Sticking with that season, you contributed with 4 goals. Name one of the teams you scored against.
Lincoln City.
Following an FA Cup tie with Leicester City, manager Bill Dearden announced his departure, going on to join which side?
Notts County.
Drama Batter is an anagram of which of your former teammates?
Adam Barrett.
In all competitions in your first season, 2000-2001, how many starts did you make?
Ooh. 23.
And back to the promotion winning season. How many league goals did the Stags score that season? 70, 72 or 74?
Oh, 74.
Not the clock. Well, this is where we're going to do the working out of the time. So at the time without penalties was 1 minute 40.
Yeah.
You passed on 1, which makes it 1 minute 50. And then you got 2 wrong, which gives you a total time of on the nose 2 minutes.
Okay, 2 wrong. I'm all right with that.
But I'll go through the ones that you got wrong or passed on. So 7 correct. Sorry, I did my math. Cam will be screaming at me. 7 in 2 minutes on the nose. The first one you passed on, the team you debut against, I got Cheltenham Town.
Right. It was Cheltenham Town. Yeah, Chris Greenacre scored that lob from like 40 yards. Yeah, that's the one.
And then it was the last 2 questions you got wrong.
Yeah.
Competitions in your first season, 0102, 2000 and 2001, sorry. How many starts did you make? I got 19.
Ah, right. I said 23, yeah.
And back to the promotion winning season, 70, 72 or 74. You went 74. The correct answer was 72.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Not a bad score.
Not bad. Yeah.
At this point as well, usually I would tell you how you did compared to your teammates, but it's been 2 years since we
Yeah.
I don't know where the hard drive is with the details on.
Yeah.
Listen back to the other episodes yet to find out.
Yeah.
We'll listen back. I will put it on screen in the video version, and I'll record the outro for this. I'll also put it in there for our audience and let you know as well. But I think you'll be up there. I think if memory serves me correct, it's usually 5 or 6 in around 2 minutes 40 because people forget that they should just have a guess.
Yeah.
It adds 10 seconds. So
definitely. Yeah. No, I was happy with that. Yeah. The first one, the debut, and then as soon as you said it, again, obviously I remember the goal and I remember being there. So yeah, no, it was brilliant. Thank you.
Great times. We're going to end on 2 things. Let's end on the first one, and that, of course, we're going to go back to the mental health thing for a second, and that is, what's your message to people listening to this that might be going through a bit of a rough time or might be starting to notice little subtle changes in themselves, whether it's not wanting to go out as much, not eating as much, being a little bit lethargic? What's your message to them? And then, of course, to the people that might be even noticing those little changes.
One of the things is to stay as present as you can in the moment, because I know that's difficult when your mind's going all over, but if you can, try to just focus on doing one thing at a time and just be as present as you can. But the other thing I would say is actually what we talked about. Have you had a loss somewhere? Can you trace back to where there might have been a loss? And if you can do that, that can maybe give you some breadcrumbs and help you to kind of start to understand yourself. Because I believe this, people try to change or they try to fight. I hear this comment a lot, actually. I'm going to say it. People go off, we're going to fight against it. And I that's not my experience. Fighting against it only makes it bigger and stronger and last longer. It's about acceptance and then the understanding of you as a person. If you can understand you, half of the work you'll have to do will just completely change. And that acceptance of yourself is so key. It's that literally, it's all right to be you, and it's all right to feel any way that you feel like. And if you can do that, because as soon as you say, yeah, do you know what, I'm struggling with my thoughts at the minute. As soon as you say that and you're actually okay about it, they actually disappear, most of them, and then you're okay. And there's nothing to be ashamed of. That's the thing I would say at all. You know, that's the main thing. Just acceptance is the key to recovery. You're just you. No one else is you. And in that way, you're good enough. And that's what I will always say to people. Just, you're good enough as you are, and accept yourself. And I know there's a lot of this talk about loving yourself and all that, but it really is true. If you can just accept who you are, where you are right now, and that's all right, you'll start to feel a lot better. It's the fighting against it that's the big trouble.
100%. And if you are struggling, if you notice someone that might be struggling, like we said earlier, reach out, have those conversations. You don't have to go straight in with the hard stuff. You can break it down, use football, use the power of football, whatever it might be, to to start those conversations and make that change. And I know that we've spoken a lot about males in this episode because of what the majority of our audience is and what a typical, in inverted commas, football audience is. But the same goes for females too. Check on your mates. So many friends. Check on your mates, check in, and keep those conversations going. Just because the season's done doesn't mean that those friendships are. So go and do that. And reflecting finally on football as well, we always give the last word to our guests. Your final thoughts and your final comments about your time as a Mansfield Town player. This is your chance to finally wrap up Martin Pemberton's Stag story.
So my time at the Stags, I'll be forever grateful to Billy Dearden for giving me the opportunity to come back into pro football, and then to have the experience of those 2 years building in the first year to then go into that promotion winning side in the second season, playing some of the best football I've ever been privileged to play in a team of such good players, was the highlight of my career. So my time at the Stags, I always look back on so fondly, and I'll always cherish it.
And there you have it. There's Martin Pemberton's Stags story. Wise words from him throughout. I hope that you found that insightful and helpful as well. There's a lot of stuff, like I said at the very, very beginning, that people don't talk about often, especially ex-footballers. What happens after the full-time whistle is blown, those places which people go to. The season is over now, and like I said at the very start of the show, sometimes it can be difficult to fill that void on a Saturday afternoon. If going to the Stags, whether it's home or away, or any football team out there, if you're just a generic football fan listening, going to watch your team is something to aim for at the end of the week. I know for me personally in the past, it's been something to aim for, a goal to reach for as well. And then all of a sudden, when it's not there during the close season, it can feel very, very difficult. The sun can be shining outside, but you don't feel like you can go out because you've not got a reason to do so. And like we mentioned in this episode, what I would encourage people to do is find those who you sit around, friends that are football fans or whatever, send them a message on Facebook and just start a conversation. If it's about Stags or football, it's about Stags or football. That's what it is. That's the beauty of football, actually, is the fact that it enables us to have those conversations. It enables us to start those conversations and talk, and it's through them which you can really start to ask those questions and make sure that someone really is okay. Maybe go for a walk, go for a coffee, whatever it may be. Get together. Just because the football season is over doesn't mean that we can't get together, we can't be together, we can't socialise. Find things to do. There are plenty of things to do out there, and just keep talking to each other and keep those conversations going, because they are really, really, really important. If you are struggling and you do need help, there are plenty of ways in which you can do so. Mind is a great charity to reach out to, as is the Samaritans. But also, if you're looking for something a little bit locally as well, there are plenty of groups and stuff which offer support. Enlighten the Shadows is a great one. Also, Mansfield Town Community Trust. They run a number of wellbeing sessions now, including a come and have a kickabout and a chat session, I think on a Monday at Oak Tree Leisure Centre. All the details you'll find on their website. If you do anything today off the back of this episode, if it's inspired you to think, you know what, I am in a little bit of a pickle at the minute, I'm a little bit in a dark place, use these services, reach out and get help, and honestly, you will feel a lot better from doing so. That first step, like me and Pembo said in the episode there, is very much the hardest, but you can do it. You really can do it. Thanks so much for listening. Check in on your mates. We'll see you again for another Stags story very, very soon indeed. This is the Mansfield Matters podcast, the show for the fans, by the fans. Why? Because Mansfield matters, and so does mental health. Goodbye.